Okay. So now we all get quiet, right? Because the recording is on.
Yeah, that's it.
I hope Dan's not in charge of the meeting today. Did Steve get any planning done this week?
That's why he's not here today. He was able to work in the field a little yesterday afternoon after Mason's graduation to work the ground down, and they're planting corn and soybeans this morning. They still have nearly 300 acres of corn to plant and about 3 days to do it before it rains again, and that much or more soybeans to do. We just can't catch a break. It just won't quit raining. So they're doing their best, but it's very, very frustrating.
Pretty thorough report.
No,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dave, I talked over you.
I say that was a pretty thorough report.
Well, the frustration level at Mills Family Farms is fairly high on all parts. So that's a question that you're in danger of getting more information than you want when you ask the question. It's time for us to start. I have some music for us, and then we will proceed from there.
I hope Lynn's music is familiar. I asked her to play God of Grace and God of Glory. We had it last week, but we're going to do it again this week.
Obviously, Brent is not here this morning. Chip, would you like to, as a part of our joys and concerns, give us an update on what's going on?
Well,
Where are you?
it was a joy and a concern. And I told Lynn when I came on this morning that I could tell it, but it would be an Aunt Betty story. So they had trouble with the truck. Everything was all planned. Brent, has everything organized, but there was trouble with the truck, and I was supposed to be there to help pack the truck. And while the packing was when they got the truck, the packing was actually going on. I was stuck in traffic trying to get food because of the Mooresville graduation. I got stuck in all that traffic, but they got on the way. It was about 3, I think. And Brent emailed me at like 7 something saying that they got there.
So Brent's gone.
Are there other joys and concerns to share? Sue, I think you're speaking, but you're muted.
Okay, thanks. I think everybody knows now, but I have a new great grandson now, born yesterday, and name is Miles. So that's really a blessing because all went well and there was a potential problem with it. But all went well.
That's good news. Well, if we have no other joys and concerns to share, let's mute ourselves and enter some open worship. Sylvia is our worship leader this morning, and she'll speak out of the silence.
From the hymn, God of Grace and God of Glory, the chorus begins with, grant us wisdom, grant us courage, that we may face the living of these days, for the facing of this hour. So we talked about wisdom, and I hope all of you used your best wisdom all week. Today's what is courage? This is the definition that I've put together from a couple of other resources. Courage is the quality that allows us to face danger, difficulty, pain, and I would say it and the unknown. Sometimes we are just very uncourageous about being faced with a situation we just don't know about. It's about taking action despite fear, persevering through adversity, and acting with moral strength even when facing unpleasant consequences. While often associated with heroic acts, true courage can also be found in our everyday lives, when we choose to be honest, vulnerable, and true to ourselves. Courage is resistance to being subdued by fear, not the absence of fear. First of all, I must confess, and you probably know this about me, that I just don't do things that take a lot of courage. I pretty much avoid danger and difficulty and pain. I recently went to the dentist for a filling. Ironically, it was in one of my wisdom teeth. I had to work hard to be courageous. I was afraid the drilling would hurt, or at least the shot to deaden the surrounding area. I knew that would hurt. I practiced what I would do to take my mind off of what the dentist was doing. I tried taking deep breaths. I tried finger exercises on my knees, much like playing the piano. And I tried thinking of lyrics to songs. See how brave I was? My challenge was nothing like climbing a mountain, or taking a stroll through woods on a dark night, or walking a tightrope without a net underneath, or enlisting as a servicewoman in the army. My courage would hardly compare to some of the early Quaker women who went to prisons to take blankets and food and other care supplies for prisoners, or for those Quaker women who stood up for the right to vote, or for those now in the American Friends Service Committee as they're taking aid to the people in Gaza. My story wouldn't have made it into the Bible, along with Daniel in the lion's den, or Moses leading the Israelites through the Red Sea, or David confronting the giant, or Esther going to King Xerxes to save her people, or Mary who accepted her role as the mother of the Messiah, and especially Jesus, who faced crucifixion on the cross. Nope, my trip to the dentist hardly measures up. I have taken some trips to places in the world that might be scary, but there were always people with me who knew the territory and the people, much like Dan is now. So I've never felt that I was in danger. Well, maybe except for the fact that the vehicles I was in were on the left side of the road. And if you don't count that crazy taxi driver in Cairo, Egypt, who turned his head to face Dan while he was talking, and he was the fifth car across a highway that only had 3 lines. Maybe he could hear out of his left ear, I don't know. Maybe he could see out of his left ear. Some of you have had to face serious medical situations, or have had to confront an angry person, or you've had to make a tough decision about leaving a job. Let's take a couple of minutes right now for you to think about yourself in response to 3 questions. I will leave some open time between each of these to do your remembering. Question 1, in what situation have you felt very frightened? Question 2, how did you respond to that? And question 3, if courage rose up within you, what did that look like? Now, if there are 2 or 3 of us that would like to share your experience, we'd like to hear from you, but you'll need to unmute first. Who wants to talk about what you just remembered? That's okay. Where does courage come from? Courage may come from inside you. The Latin word that is the base for the word courage is cor, meaning heart. You may have such a strong conscience about something that you are willing to take a risk of being rejected or harassed. We know people who risk their lives to save the lives of others. A friend and a colleague of mine recently donated a kidney to his brother. Even though the brother is about 80 years old and whose cancer is in remission, he gave him a new kidney. Or from inside you, you may have a vision of what is possible if you make it through whatever situation that frightens you. For example, if you see that traveling on an airplane to be with your son in Japan, or being able to walk without pain if you get that knee fixed. Courage also comes from external sources. Those people who encourage you by saying how much better they feel a few weeks after that knee surgery, that encourages us to be brave. And those people may be our parents who teach us to consider the pros and cons of making certain decisions before we take on something we may fear. When Dale was going through chemo treatments that had unpleasant consequences, I asked him, Dale, are you going through all of this because you know so many people are praying for you? He said, yes, I don't want to disappoint them. But certainly God grants us courage as we are working in relationship with him. In the book of John 16:13, we are assured by Jesus, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Paul, writing to his young disciple Timothy, urges him to move beyond fear and into a place of boldness and strength. In 2 Timothy 1, verse 7, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and self-control." And after Moses died, God selects Joshua to be the leader of the Israelites. And Joshua hears these words from God: "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, not be dismayed, for the Lord our God is with you wherever you go." Easier said than done. Be not afraid. As we considered our recollections for a time we felt afraid, I remembered my story when as a school principal, I was confronted with a very angry parent of a sweet but timid little redheaded girl. Her classroom teacher and I had agreed to seek permission from the parents to have the girl tested for learning disabilities. The teacher had sent home the papers. This man had read the written request for permission to take the required steps to get the girl some special help, and he was really angry. So he stormed into my office, bypassing the secretary's desk and the usual sign-in procedure. And when he appeared suddenly in front of me, I stood up to be at eye level with him, but could hardly see his face for all the piercings, chains dangling from his belt, and arms and necks covered with tattoos. He said, "How dare you? You want to put my daughter in a retarded class. There's no way she's retarded." By then, he had walked around my desk to get in my face, and I had backed up against the wall and was telling myself to keep calm. From somewhere inside me arose these words, and some incredible power allowed me to speak to him calmly. "Sir, I can see that you love your daughter very much, and we love her too. In those papers, we are asking you if we can get her some special help beyond what a regular teacher can do. We know she's smart, but for some reason she's behind the other students and she feels embarrassed and timid, and sometimes she cries. If you say it's okay, you will allow us to give her a teacher to work with all alone, and she can get caught up. She will be much happier and more confident, and that beautiful face will smile again. And if you can come back tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, we can sit down with her classroom teacher and the teacher she will be working with, and you can share your concerns with them. And I'll be there too." "Oh, I'm so sorry," he said as he backed up and went out the door. He didn't show up the next morning. He must have lost his courage, but that sweet little girl brought in the signed papers the next day. Why do we need courage? I say so we can do the right thing, so we can help God with the work on this earth he calls us to do. You may know this story, the Carpathia. There were 3 ships around one sinking ship when a distress signal was being sent. The first one, Samson, was only 7 miles away from the sinking ship, but it turned their backs because the crew on board the ship had been involved in illegal hunting of seals and they didn't want to get caught. There was another ship about 14 miles away from the sinking ship. The Californian saw the distress signals, but they were surrounded by ice and it was nighttime, so it didn't feel safe to move. They decided to wait until the morning for the conditions to improve. The third ship, the Carpathia, was about 60 miles away and moving in the other direction when they heard the cries over the radio. The captain, Arthur Rostron, decided to try to help. He just prayed to God for direction and turned his boat. The ship drudged through ice fields in the dark and kept going. The shipwreck it sailed to was none other than the Titanic. The crew on Arthur Rostron's ship saved 705 lives that night because one man had the courage to look beyond his own comfort and safety and choose the right over the easy. Courage is not about intense bravery. It's just about having the guts to let go of our self-centeredness because someone else is in need. This was posted on Facebook by Scott Wagner, but it was written by in a book by Dorcas Cheng Tozan. She says, the sphere of social justice, with its activism and advocacy, protests and pushbacks, debates and call-outs, does not seem like the right place for tender-hearted, easily overwhelmed individuals. That sounds like me. But it's exactly where we need to be. Humanity needs our conscientiousness, our intuitiveness, our creative, compassionate souls at the forefront of addressing our most painful and pressing challenges. In the past century, the greatest, most impactful social movements have been made up of all kinds of people doing all kinds of different activities. There have been writers and philosophers, artists and administrators, engineers and scientists, teachers and historians, secretaries and accountants. Social change has come about through kindness, friendship, data, technology, art, ideas, research, mentorship, dialogue, and more. No matter your particular flavor of sensitivity, there is a place for you to contribute in a unique and meaningful way. I have taken the liberty of rewriting the above paragraph in my own words, and from the perspective the perspective of my own challenges. If there is something in this rewrite for you, I encourage you to act on it. In these days of extreme political and social upheaval, with its activism and advocacy, in its protests and pushbacks, arguments and revenge for disagreeing, even though we feel overwhelmed, we should not be cowering in a corner with a blanket over our eyes. If ever God calls upon us to act with courage, it is now. No matter what your means to communicate is, whether it be through art or writing or confronting face to face, or composing and sharing a song or poem, or inviting someone with whom you disagree to have conversation over lunch, or send money to support those who represent your perspective, there is a place and a way for you to contribute meaningfully. Change has come through having compassion, being charitable, choosing to act on our convictions, and following the teachings of Jesus. When we love our neighbors, when we do good to those who are difficult for us, and keep in constant companionship with the Holy Spirit, goodwill will come from us and through us. Lord, grant us wisdom and grant us courage, lest we miss thy kingdom's goal. Grandfather Barnett's favorite hymn. The first verse is, "O Jesus, I have promised to serve thee to the end. Be thou forever with me, my master and my friend. I shall not fear the battle if thou art by my side, nor wander from the pathway if thou wilt be my guide."
We've reached that time during the morning when some of us need to go other places, and we wish you Godspeed. The rest of us remain in worship for a little while longer.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everybody.
Sylvia. It's really
Thank you.
given me a lot to think about.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And then there were none.
Yeah, I'm going to turn off the recording here.